My name is Chris. The beginning of Fresh Talk on something like this.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
I was the sixth member of NWA. You know that?
I thought it was Two Live Crew.
Well, that's true. I don't think I've ever shared my Two Live Crew story
I'm
on
not sure
air.
you have.
May have to save that doozy.
Yeah.
It's one of my top stories. I have like 5 go-tos, like to if I'm in a serious conversation where I want to impress somebody, I've got like 5 stories. Dan's heard them all 500 times. But that's one of them. That's one of them. That's one of the stories. My Two Live Crew, how I appeared on a Two Live Crew record.
Oh yeah, I know.
Sort of.
I know that one for sure.
Yeah, we'll save that. We'll save that Two Live Crew story. Anyway, folks, you're listening to Fresh Talk. My name is Chris.
I'm Dan.
And Dan, you and I just had a nice lengthy conversation about the fact that the listeners of Fresh Talk 2.0,
yep,
where you and I kind of command the floor as opposed to the old model where we had more of a 4-man setup.
Yep.
Numbers are pretty good.
They're still listening. I don't know why.
Better than we thought.
Definitely better than
we
thought.
We didn't lose as many as we thought.
As far as
we lost Kai. Kai doesn't listen anymore.
Now.
Son of a bitch. Fucker. However, we have already set up in the coming very soon. We're gonna have another reunion of the old gang.
Yes.
So if you're missing your Kai, you're missing your John, hang in there for a week or two. They're coming back for a celebratory holiday episode, if you will. But on this episode, you got me, you got Dan, and we're here to talk some shit on some shit.
That.
Yes. Dan, how have you been?
Good. It's the week after Halloween. Today's the 4th as we record this.
Yes.
I had a very nice Halloween. It was lots of fun.
What did you dress up as?
So I went as part of a 2-part costume. I dressed up as Zombie Internet Explorer, and I went with my girlfriend who dressed up as Firefox.
Oh, okay. And I saw on the old Facebook you took a lot of abuse for your nerdy costume.
Mostly it was just Bobby Connor, who immediately was like, "Nerd alert," which I mean I would expect nothing less.
And that is a relatively nerdy costume.
Oh God, yeah.
But clever, very very clever.
But it was really fun. Like so, people would because we went to Bombay, we saw Mandex play and everything, and we went to Ventiki, my favorite tiki bar here in town, and so people would be like looking at us and they would kind of see me and kind of see Jacqueline and say, "Okay, so you're a fox, but what?" And then she would like point at me, and then they would like the lights would turn on. This happened like a dozen times. They're like, "Oh, I get it." Like, it was really fun.
Good. It's good. Well, I hosted I don't know if it's the right word, but I was a MC at the local mall for a kids Halloween hang, and then I went home immediately after and did the candy thing. But something super cool, man, and I want to basically invite you to this next year.
Okay.
Somebody's doing a haunted house in my neighborhood.
In your hood?
Yeah, it's called the Undertaker's Asylum. And I
did see that posted.
Do you see that?
I saw it posted about, yeah.
I cruised over to check it out on Halloween night. Just like, it's literally 5 houses from my house. And I thought it was going to be the lamest thing in the world. Like some dude in his backyard, whatever.
Sure.
It was professional.
Really? It was legit?
It was legitimately professional. I mean, it is something that took weeks to put together. It's not something that a guy did in the course of a couple of days. He doesn't charge any money. It's totally free. You go through his side gate backyard, and then he's got walls and patterns and walkways and mirrors and monsters and people jumping out. Like, he only does it for 7 days. But I thought, how super cool to offer that for free at that level,
badass.
Isn't that cool? You'd really, really like it.
Yeah,
Some of the art and stuff was really awesome, man. So that was kind of my Halloween. It was sort of on the low key end. I just got back from the East Coast right before Halloween. Aaron and I shot out there, visit the folks, say hi, all that kind of stuff. But we did some scouting for our next film because, as any listener of this podcast knows, our first film is officially done. Betting on Baker is done. We have begun the hunt for distribution. Big week because there's a big film conference market in Los Angeles this week. So we got a guy going down there for 2 days, going around. We got the emails out. The distribution hunt starts. We can talk about distribution some other time, but that is the company that picks up your film to essentially help release it, be it on DVD or video on demand or iTunes or Netflix. You kind of need like the record label, if you will, to get your product out there. So we're looking for that company right now. And, you know, you kind of have to lay low because you don't want to get people all hyped on a movie because the company may come along, grab it, and say we're putting it out in 4 months, not next week. So,
totally.
But we already have another script, as we discussed. It's a raunchy wedding comedy called Wedding or Not.
So I'm told.
And we want to film it in Cape May, my hometown. So we literally went back there. We used some miles and just fired out for 48 hours. And we just went to all these cool places and talked to some owners and some businesses and said, hey, we want to do this. We have no idea if we'll ever find the money to do it. But let's say we did do it. Could we do it here? And it looks like it was a resounding yes. Most places were in. The city was cool with it. And the permits, man, compared to out here, it's basically like, tell us where you're going to be and have fun. Like, that's it. Like, as long as you're not blowing anything up, we're cool. Versus where we live in Ventura, 45 minutes from LA, it's like, I mean, it's holy shit out here. Yeah, it's just a different world. So it was cool going to the East Coast, and there was I had that weird East Coast thing. And you kind of know this, but you've never really lived out there.
Right.
There is basically a 72-hour period where fall says goodbye and it shifts into winter. And it happens right around late October, early November. And I felt it, man. I mean, like the first day I was there, it's beautiful, it's nice, it's cold, it's sunny, it's fall, the trees are gorgeous. And then the rains come, and then the cold comes. And you can feel, even talking to my friends back there, the hibernation setting in, the conversations about like, hey, man, when spring comes, I'm going to do this, or looking forward to this family trip. Like, people, it is such a different way of life. And then, damn, the clocks change.
And that's it.
Forget about it. I mean, forget about it. Like, why can't we fuck with those clocks and push them a couple hours the other way and just give people sunlight? It just makes people happier.
It's crazy.
I'm
so sick of we left daylight savings time. Now we're back on regular standard time.
I'm like, I've been kind of weird the past 3 days ever since it switched. I'm not right. I haven't caught up with it. I feel like I can't describe it. I feel like my afternoons are taking forever, but then the nights are just gone.
Yeah, strange. Normally that usually happens to me. This year hasn't affected me so much. I don't know why exactly. I was really not looking forward to it getting dark so much earlier because obviously, as you know, I have a crazy dog that needs a lot of exercise. And if I can't get him out because it's dark, like, he's going to drive me crazy. So it hasn't been so bad yet. I've been waking up before my alarm clock every day because I have an extra hour of sleep.
Okay.
Haven't really noticed. I've been getting hungry before lunch because it's an hour later than it really is. So I'm like, I'm kind of hungry. And then like I still, work, and then
kind of bums me out. It's like,
totally.
The older I get, the more like I'm kind of like out on winter. Like, I like a nice snow day as much as the next guy, but 3-4 months of just freezing cold, dark, rainy weather, as many of our friends in the UK experience.
Which we don't know what that is, but
yeah. I mean, what do they experience that 7 months out of the year?
Not necessarily cold and dark, but definitely rainy all the time.
Oh, man, it takes the life out of you. It really, I mean, living out here is a freaking paradise.
It is. And it's funny. We had our first little winter.
But it kind of got cold here.
Big air quotes, winter storm. And it's just, they always come from the Pacific Northwest and they're always cold. But it was like, it rained for like, I don't know, 20 minutes. But it was like chilly for a minute. And it was kind of drizzling like all day. And it was kind of cloudy. I was like, strange. This feels like England.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's bizarre. Yeah, it's man, Southern California is something else if you ever have the opportunity to live out here. It's a special place. I had one of those like Wednesday days. We're recording this on a Wednesday. Just the blues, not serious blues. Nothing bad's going on. I just wasn't right today. I wasn't stoked. I knew it when I woke up. I had 1 or 2 little things get canceled, so I sort of had a little extra. Just one of those days, not to get in, nothing bad. But I was like, man, I wonder how much of this is the time change and just being like clock's a little different. It's a little colder. And I'm like, man, I need to shut up because there are people out there beyond real life problems. Of course, somebody called and I had a family member that's in the hospital and all this kind of shit. So you get hit with that and you're like, shut up. Like, Chris, like, you are a son of a bitch that, like, but it's human nature, I think, to sometimes just get down in the dumps over nothing. Everything's totally fine. I have money problems. I've always had money problems. What's the big fucking deal?
We're always very good, humans in general, about adapting to a new status quo, whatever that is. That's why all these, get rich quick millionaires that win the lottery blow all their money. Because it's not like the novelty of that wears off really quickly. Oh my God, I have all this money.
Yeah.
And then after a month or two of spending a shitload of money, you kind of adjust to like, well, this is just the way
you adjust to it.
And then you spend that money all the time. And then if you don't manage it, it's gone. So
that's a really good point. You say people are like almost like they adjust to their situation so well that they think, oh, if I had this, all would be well here.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And then you get it and you're like, well, but okay, I've got all that, but now I need that thing,
Yeah, we're always looking for the next thing. Not more money, more problems. However, I was just speaking to somebody at the gym just got back from the gym, and we were talking about, the guy said, he's like, I know more money is more problems, but I'm willing to check out what mo problems are for a little bit. You know, I'd like to just give me a chance to see if I can handle mo problems if I get the mo money.
Let's see what those problems are.
Yeah, just give me a shot. You know, maybe I'll be a little better at it than the song thinks I will. You know?
No shit.
Mo money, mo problems. Oh, well, it's always nice to talk about life and the weather and the times and the change. And I just feel like when I go home, I have just a much deeper conversation that I will not go into. But because I left home very early, I see the changes that occur back there from places and from people starting families, and to see my own family and my parents and all that. I get it in like a once a year or twice a year burst. I don't get to see these changes gradually happen. And you notice them so much more when they're intense like that. Honestly, it's the equivalent of losing weight. And you got a buddy that loses weight, but you work with them every day. You don't really notice, you know.
All of a sudden, you're like, is he getting better?
3 months later, like, dude, you look pretty good, man. Did you lose some weight? And the guy's like, dude, I lost 30 pounds. I've been working on it for 3 months. But if you see that buddy fat, and then 3 months, you don't see him for 3 months and you roll in, it's a shock. Like when I lost a little bit of weight, everybody that saw me every day, they didn't say shit.
Because you lose a pound a week, maybe?
Exactly. But then when I saw people that hadn't seen me in 6 months, they were like, oh my God, which is kind of the reaction you want because you're proud of yourself, you know. So
well, you got to drop that weight all at once.
Boom. Yeah, it's you know, life just keeps going. It don't stop.
No,
the seasons change. It just goes. And man, every once in a while you pull back. So what I was saying is when I go back there and I see how things have changed, it's a lot to take in. It's a lot of like emotional information where you're like, I just think I become very nostalgic and very, you know, I contemplate life and the bigger questions when I go home, and I come back here and those questions are gone. It's fucking California. It's sunny out. I love the beach, you know.
Totally.
Well, I'm sorry for rambling, Dan. Like I said, I had a bummer day, but I'm feeling good here today. I feel like my night's ending nice. I'm going in the right direction.
Oh, good. We got you a nice cocktail.
So yeah, and you made a hell of a Dan makes a hell of a Moscow Mule for anybody that ever hangs out with Dan. Have him make one because they're great. It's a night I needed a cocktail. So good. Yeah, he even has the copper cups. So Dan, picks of the week. You got anything that's stoked?
You know,
anything you can recommend to the listener to check out or be into, or something you've been enjoying that people need to know about? That is not Dan's stomach, by the way. That is his.
That is my dog who is whining for some unknown reason. Yeah, you know, I really haven't done much this week. I can honestly say no. That's very true. This is going to be a sort of limited scope, but I am really enjoying the remastered edition of God of War 3 on the PlayStation 4. I've been playing that in a bit.
Which we discussed in depth.
We did. Hard to really. I kind of screwed up on the pick this week.
Okay, that's okay. Because quickly. I texted you the other night about video games, and that probably happens once every 10 years. Yeah. But I'm watching TV.
I cannot wait for this.
And if you're listeners who follow every week know that Dan recently got a PS4, and we were talking about some games and some options, and the fact that he's a gamer, and there's a good chance if he gets the wrong game, he could be gone for days. I'm watching TV, and a commercial comes on for a video game, and some of those video game commercials look more interesting than trailers for movies.
Totally.
One comes on that stops me dead in my tracks to the point that now that you can rewind TV if you're watching live, I rewound the commercial and watched it again. And that is dropping November 17th, at least in the United States, Star Wars Battlefront.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Holy shit. That game looks incredible. And I played a lot of Battlefront. I didn't play Battlefront 1. I played a lot of Battlefront 2 on the PlayStation 2. Brought it on tour in the tour bus.
Wow.
RV. Super, super fun. And then you see this and you're like, holy shit. This doesn't look like real life, but it looks like real life. It looks like you're in the goddamn movie. It looks like you're on Hoth. And there's so many different characters you can play, different classes. You can fly the fucking A-Wings that take down the AT-AT walkers and stuff. It was
every once in a while I see a game, much like God of War.
Yeah.
And I've seen some Assassin's Creed commercials that have really grabbed my attention. But every once in a while I see a game and I say to myself, I need to get a system and just suck it up. But again, we've talked about this a million times, but I know what that would do is, as much as I like to watch movies and whatnot, there goes my movie time. So at the end of the night, when I hop in bed and I'm winding down and I'm messing around on the computer, but I got a movie on, that's done. That is gone. That becomes the 2 hours that you need to get your game on. And then the little demon sets in. Like I told you today, I had like a meeting that was going to be not a meeting, but a couple things going on this afternoon. They all got shifted. I had nothing going on. That becomes, well, maybe I could get in 3 hours of Battlefront because the addiction, I fear the addiction. I fear it. But
or it's like maybe I can get in an hour of Battlefront and then at 3 a.m. you're like, oh shit, I got to go to bed.
Yeah, it's like watching a marathon TV show where you get sucked in extra episodes. So are you going to get that game day one? Is that like a done deal for you now that you have a PS4?
I don't know if I'm going to get it day one. It's going to be close.
Because it's right around Thanksgiving.
It's Thanksgiving.
And you probably have a day or two off work.
I have Thanksgiving and the next day off of work.
That sounds like a 48-hour Battlefront session.
My brother is going to be back in town, so that
he is a gamer.
That could be a lot of fun. I mean, you have to play on. This is the thing with PlayStation 4. It used to be free to play online. PlayStation 4, you have to have a PS.
Come on, Gamefield.
Come on, Games, yeah. We got to talk about the new South Park too.
We got one on tonight.
Oh, there's another one. Did you see last week's?
Oh, I just adore it.
Unbelievable. It's so funny.
Again, we talk about South Park so much, but
just go watch it.
They're on such another level. But go on.
So you have to have a PlayStation Now, I believe, PlayStation Now subscription, whatever it is, to be able to play online. So if I want to play Battlefront 2, which is an online game, I have to spend $30 or $40 for the year in addition to the game, the system, everything else I already bought. So it's kind of a little kick in the ass. I'm sure I'll do it because there are going to be other games I want to play that probably have online components, but I may not do it right away. We'll see. I mean, I get a couple of weeks off towards the end of the year for the holidays. I take some time. I get some time. So I'll have like 2 weeks off, hopefully, and I'll be able to just plow into this shit.
So if you don't jump on it Thanksgiving around release date, you're going to get your Battlefront on probably
in December, towards New Year's.
Could be like a holiday, your holidays spent playing Battlefront.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even started Until Dawn yet, which is kind of like a thriller slasher game that looks freaking awesome.
Also, playing a video game these days is much like watching a TV series. It would be like I'm gonna watch. I'm making one up, but I'm gonna watch The Wire. Everybody talks about The Wire. The Wire is amazing, and it is amazing if you've never seen it. But those 5 seasons and those, let's say, 10 episodes. That's 50 hours. No, that's about 50 hours of TV time to watch the whole series, roughly, give or take. That'd be the equivalent of kind of playing a game like that, right?
Yeah, especially with something like Battlefront, where it's online, so there's no really, I don't know if there's a single player aspect, or it's just online, so it's endless. Like there's no limit to how much you can play.
So it becomes a World of Warcraft kind of thing?
Kind of, because at least the other Battlefronts worked like there was a map, and you were all on the map, and you all played together, and you had to achieve objectives. You had to basically capture the flag. And so whoever won the level, and then you go to the next level, and you just keep going. Like there's no start and finish because you're just playing against other people or with other people or both. So, and it just goes forever.
Looks great.
It looks amazing.
So there's your rave. I gave it to you. It's Star Wars Battlefront. It's not even out yet, and it's
I didn't want to,
Cool. I got a rave for you. Something that I'm really stoked on. As you know, I'm a fan of Western movies, and as you know, I don't say the word Western, right? But yes,
because Western is not a word.
Western is not a word, but I love Western movies. Kai, as well, is a big Western fan. I wish he was here to discuss this in depth, but I had a phone conversation with him about it. Kurt Russell, Wyatt Earp in the movie Tombstone, one of my favorite movies of all time, one of the best Westerns ever made, and he has not been in a Western since. Basically, he kind of said, "Yo, I was Wyatt Earp in Tombstone. What am I going to do?"
And it was huge.
Yeah, huge. I can't really recreate that. Well, the new Tarantino movie is coming out in December, The Hateful Eight, and it is based in a Western setting and a snowstorm. Kurt Russell is in it. So he's like, hey, it's Tarantino. I'll come back and I'll do a Western. However, another script comes to Kurt Russell called Bone Tomahawk. And it's by an author, basically a novelist, who wrote this screenplay. I don't have a lot of information about who that is or what he does, but he's been trying to get this made for a while. And it is a horror Western, a little bit horror, a little more, mostly Western, 75% Western, but there's a horror element to it of a sheriff who goes on a search party to get a kidnapped girl, but she's being held by cannibal renegade Indians that are the times are changing. They're off in the mountains somewhere, and it's a small film. But he agreed to do it, like too small for him, if you will. But by him agreeing to do it, I think Matthew Fox came on board, David Arquette came on board. So there's a couple people in it, and I illegally downloaded it, which you'd be proud of me, because here's the thing, it was in theaters for 3 days, and
Really?
not even nationally, just like in LA, right?
Wow.
So I didn't get to see it when it was in theaters, and I love Westerns. I didn't want to wait for it to come out on whatever it's coming out on. And I got to tell you, it's really good. And it's so weird because it's indie. It's almost like you're seeing Kurt Russell in a movie and you're like, it feels a little cheap, but it's still Kurt Russell, you know? And the script's really good. The dialogue's really good. And it's got some, it's kind of a little eerie, not super eerie. It's not a horror movie, but it just hit the spot. It was great to see Kurt Russell with a fucking mustache and a beard and a cowboy hat out in the West, kicking ass, but in a very weird sort of, there was like a death in it that was brutal to watch, like one of those like, whoa, that's intense. I think you'd like it. I really recommend it. It's called Bone Tomahawk.
All right.
And plus it's a great name, but it's probably going to disappear
as porn.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Boner Tomahawk. I've already thought that. But as soon as Hateful Eight comes out, you know what I mean? That's everybody you'd be talking about. But whoever this guy was that wrote this thing, I just want to say I loved it. It found it to me, and I think it was so great, especially having made an indie movie myself, and this guy's budget was probably 100 times what I had, but it was still considered an indie. So the fact that somehow he got Kurt Russell to be in like a $1.8 million movie, that's pretty intense, because Kurt Russell's probably a guy that wants $500,000 to be in a movie.
Yeah, that was probably a half of their budget.
Yes, but it's really good, and I think you'd like it. It's kind of dark, it's a little weird, but it's called Bone Tomahawk. And for anyone who's listening who likes Western movies or even a little bit of horror, I would highly, highly recommend the film.
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
That is my rave for the week.
I did get a notification from the Twitter. Good old Anthony Padilla also wants us to mention that Rise of the Tomb Raider is coming next week. That's the new Tomb Raider title for PlayStation 4. So Anthony, thank you. I might be getting that.
Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah, it's another edition of the Tomb Raider series.
And how many Tomb Raider movies are there?
I don't know. I've never seen them.
I've never seen them either.
I never really got into the series, and I did start playing the most recent Tomb Raider game, which was a kind of a departure from, I guess.
Those are big movies for Brad Pitt's wife, right?
Angelina. Yeah. Well, she has her own name, as far as I know.
It's Brad Pitt's wife. She has like 18 million children.
Yes.
She has them. She adopts them.
Yeah, whatever.
Like rich people, I got a thing like when rich people, uber rich, like that next level, like them that have wealth beyond
money.
Yeah, that's cool that they're helping some people in the process. That's fantastic. Like you can have 10 kids and adopt all these kids that had terrible lives or no future and give them a shot when you have $100 million in the bank. You can't do that when you have $100.
And you can start a foundation, not just as a tax shelter, to actually help people.
Yeah, you're right. One that really helps people as opposed to, I put 10 grand in it every year.
Money I give to charity. Don't tax me so much.
Shelter, it's crazy. So yeah, that's good. Good heads up on that. And the new Tomb Raider 6.
Well, no, I think it's a game. I don't think it's a movie.
Oh yeah, it's a game. Yeah, for sure.
I believe so. Correct me.
Yeah, no, I don't. There hasn't been 6 Tomb Raider movies.
No.
Maybe 2.
Yeah, but definitely 1, maybe 2. I don't know. Rise of the Tomb Raider. Cool. Look it up if you're into that sort of thing. I did start yesterday. In fact, I started Narcos.
Yay! That was one of the raves.
My question is, does it get a little more exciting? Because the first episode was good.
Okay.
But it was slow.
Are the subtitles bothering you?
No, I never have a problem with subtitles.
Okay.
It just wasn't
because you can't do something else and watch it.
No,
you
have to pay attention, and I did.
Okay.
It just was like the whole voiceover thing, and like they got to Pablo Escobar being a pretty important dude pretty quickly. So I have a feeling that things will get better because it's going to get nuts. But I was like,
when I first heard about it, I thought we'd see the journey, but it starts with him almost instantly. Like within 15 minutes, you see him become a cocaine baron.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, okay, now we're going to get the story of his time as a cocaine baron, basically.
And it was, which I don't necessarily
I liked it,
but it was a lot of voiceover. And then you're like, okay, it's the DEA guy talking. And
and his
backstory.
The DEA guy.
I know they have to establish
I think you're going to enjoy it.
Okay.
It's not The Wire. It's not The Sopranos. It's not Game of Thrones. It's not that level. But it's not crap either. For a 10-episode watch, I think it was a lot of fun, and you get some cool characters. And the guy who plays Pablo Escobar is very good. I think he's a very good actor.
Episode. He's fantastic.
The guy who plays the DA agent's a little light.
He's a little shaky.
He's a little shaky. I mean, because he's probably shaky up against the Pablo Escobar guy is so good. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. Right. I like this era of Netflix trying to get into the TV games. You were a big House of Cards guy. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I just never got through all of it. I got through season 1, season 2, started season.
I wasn't compelled to watch that.
Season 1 was fantastic.
It was Homeland? Did you do Homeland?
I do watch Homeland, and actually I think I may have one on deck.
That show's still going. Like, are you caught up?
I may be behind on one episode, but I'm close.
I watched the first couple episodes of the season, and I rather enjoyed it.
The concept in the beginning, the first season is great. The concept is fantastic.
Yeah, I heard the whole sleeper cell thing, right?
Basically,
yeah, that was creepy. I remember
sort of
like the scene where the guy freaking wakes up early and goes in his garage and starts praying to Allah, like, and that's the first time you realize, like,
wait,
oh shit, that was some good stuff. Somebody told me there's a horrible season of that really put it in a bad direction, but now they're trying to pull it back.
And I think so far they're doing a good job. I mean, I don't think it'll ever be as good as that first season was. 1 and 2 were good. I think the last season was pretty good. Season 4, season 5 starting off okay. So, and it's different this year.
Okay.
So she's in Germany. She's not in Islamabad or whatever.
Do you talking to TV? Did you ever dip in a Penny Dreadful?
No, never have. Never have.
Kind of think it would be, you would be into it. I caught an episode or two. I'm not in love with it just yet, but it's got this cool kind of throwback, you know, Dorian Gray, Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, but it's done in a very, it's kind of seems like it's Showtime's True Blood. You know what I mean? Like, it's got like a very almost like steampunky thing to it, because it's like the 1800s. So there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of gore. There was something going on there, but it didn't like pull me in where like I need to watch this every week kind of thing. So give that a shot. I got a bunch of ones like that where I did a episode or two and it just didn't grab me enough to hop in.
All right.
So, how's everything in Dan's tech corner?
Dan's tech corner is empty right now because it's been a slow tech week.
It's a slow week in the world of tech.
Sort in my world of tech, yes.
In your world of tech. Okay, fair enough. Well, how are we doing on time here, Dan? We ready to hop into a topic?
Yeah, we could jump in.
Cool. And I think the thing about this topic, this was suggested to us. Is that correct?
Yes, it was a listener suggestion.
A legitimate listener asked for a topic, and we are responding in kind with the topic. Who requested, and what is the topic?
The topic is, how about a conversation about piece of shit cars you've owned? Maybe mention some adventures that took place in said car by none other than Jeff Small.
Jeff Small?
Yeah.
Wow, Jeff Small.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me paint the picture really quick here with Jeff Small, if it is the Jeff Small that I know and love.
I believe it is.
Jeff Small is a good friend of mine growing up, where I grew up in Cape May, New Jersey. Jeff Small, first off, he's just a great dude. I've literally known him since we were kids. He was a hardcore punk rocker. He was the guy that, like, when he got bit by the punk rock bug, there was no turning back. But he wasn't like a mohawked, tattooed kind of punk rocker. We had those dudes.
Crusty punk.
Yeah, he loved his California skate punk. Like, Jeff Small should have been, like, when he found Pennywise, it was like a whole new world. Like, he would travel to see them. He, you know, that was like his band, you know. He was in like he was in a high school band, like we all were back then, doing Pennywise covers. Bottom line, really, really good dude. So Jeff probably knows of one of the adventures that I will talk about when we talk of cars, and maybe that's why he even brought it up. Maybe he remembers it or heard about it,
because if it's the same one that he wants you to talk about.
Okay, cool. So, well, really quick, cars. Let's just talk cars very, very fast.
Yes.
I don't give a fuck about cars.
I'm not a car guy either.
I mean, I don't notice them. You know, people go down, that's a Chevy, that's a Ford, I can't do that. I mean, I hang out with people and I hear them talk about cars and I literally feel like it's like an alien language. Much like I equate it to how kind of you feel about sports in a lot of ways, Dan. Like, you just don't have a passion for it. It's you're God knows you're surrounded by it. You have friends that live and die, all that kind of shit. But it's just never.
Yeah, I just don't care.
You never really care.
Yeah.
And I don't care about cars. When I was a kid, there was an action figure aisle at Toys R Us, and there was a car aisle, and I never even stepped foot in the car aisle. I was always much more. I mean, I had a couple just because every kid did, but I was not a kid that said, let's go play cars and push the cars around. I had He-Man fighting with, having sex with Princess Leia, you know, that kind of shit, you know, mixing it up. So at any rate, so cars, I don't have much to say on the subject. So cars for me are something that gets me to the other place. I don't care if they look beat up. I don't look at them as a status symbol. I've never needed them to essentially date girls. Like, you know, some people are like, dude, you got to have a good car if you want to hit that. You know, that's not me. You know,
Yeah.
are you as extreme about it as I am? Because I feel like
I'm-
you like
I'm-
cars a little more.
Well, not that I like them a little bit more, but I just know more about them. Like I don't, I drive a Mazda. It's not a fucking Porsche. I'm not like I need to get those rims and get the carburetor and drop this whatever. Like it's the same as you. It gets me to A to B from A to B, but I still like it. I bought my car new. It's the first car, maybe the last car I'll ever own new off the lot. Really, really nice to have a nice car.
Okay.
Not the nicest car.
So that's my next question. Have you ever had a new car?
The car I have now,
I bought
new.
car.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's the only one. My other cars that we'll get into were very much the opposite.
Okay. Can you remember every car you've had?
Yeah, of course.
Cool. Give me the breakdown.
I haven't had that many.
Yeah, same here.
The car I learned to drive in was a 1976 Volkswagen van, which you may remember from many freshman trips.
Do. Yeah.
Beige. It was
vintage vehicle.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I find a vehicle that touches me, and
Yeah.
I do have a bond with cars. See, some guys have it. Your VW is a special car to me.
There's something special about that particular van. Not just the year, but like that run of van from the 60s up to the.
They look
the
cool
late
as shit.
70s.
I'm a
They're
big
cool as
Arlo Guthrie fan
Yeah.
too, and Alice's Restaurant's all about him and the red VW microbus. So I always just thought they were great, and they're neat cars. I mean, you could
Yeah.
kind of hang out in them.
which we did.
Yes.
My brother lived in it for a couple of summers when he was teaching windsurfers out in Oregon.
And I believe you had, how do I put this politely? One of your first intense experiences as a teenager occurred in said VW.
No, that's where you're wrong.
No, really?
Well, not the first one anyway.
Okay. The next 99 occurred in that. But so your first car was a VW bus.
VW bus, and it's a bus. It's got a big steering wheel,
Mhm.
and it's got the stick shift like comes way up out of the floor, like
Yeah.
you're driving a fucking
Tough
school
ass
bus.
car to learn on. It's how to drive.
Yeah,
Like
and,
that's a rough first car.
and there's the engine in the back, so the distribution of weight is different from every other car you're
They
going to drive.
break down a
They
lot.
break down constantly.
Uh-huh.
If you get in an accident, you are in somebody, you're probably going to get cut in half because there's nothing between you and the next car.
Uh-huh.
A classic vehicle, as much as I can appreciate them, and fun. Like, it's kind of a surf, hippie,
Yeah.
fun thing. And we have stories out the ass about early freshman trips up north, playing shows locally and otherwise.
And you could cart gear with it.
a lot of gear.
Yeah.
And so that was my first car.
First car. That's number one.
Yeah.
Okay. What's number two?
Number two was when, let's see. Number two was my dad's truck. So these were both hand-me-downs. My dad bought.
So the VW was a hand-me-down, and then the truck was a
Yeah.
hand-me-down.
VW was the family car. It was my mom's car. She drove it, and then my brother learned to drive.
That's
carted us around.
I did not
in it.
know that. Yeah.
My brother learned to drive. He drove that until I learned to drive, and then we shared it. He went away to college finally, and I had the ride. So that was my, senior year of high school, driving to school in the VW. It was kind of fun.
Uh-huh.
After that, I drove that car for a very long time. I was probably 22 when I think Jeff kind of took it back and wanted to sell it. But my dad had bought. Let's see what happened. No, my mom bought a new car. My dad took over my mom's giant van because we always had giant vans when I was growing up.
Uh-huh.
So he gave me his truck because he used to be in construction. He had an 88 Ford Ranger, a little bit of a lift kit, a little bit of a, the camper shell in the back. And I drove that around for a long time.
Okay.
So Ford Ranger, good car. Third car was, it was a motorcycle because my parents both ride bikes.
I don't think motorcycle counts.
Okay. Well, it was primary mode of transportation.
But it was your primary
for a
mode.
while. I didn't have a car. I had this Honda
And
Rebel.
Dan had an old cop bike. He had literally had like one of those chips looking bikes. Like it's
It
the
was.
bike that when you're on the freeway and you're speeding and you see it in the distance, like, fuck, it's a cop. And then it's fucking Dan. You're like, what a dick.
And
Why does he have a cop bike?
What's great is that's exactly what happened, and people would get out of my way on the freeway because they didn't want to be in front of a cop, and then
Yeah.
I'd go right by and go, suckers.
There is a theory that life is easier to have a cop
Oh,
bike.
cops would wave at me like, like they
Crazy.
waved to each other. It was really fun.
Huh.
That didn't last too long though. So then I bought my then girlfriend's Mustang.
Okay.
Which was kind of like, it was a car guy's car. It was a '96 Mustang GT.
So did you have a lot of car kooks that would like maybe talk to you like,
Yeah,
dude, Mustang, bitch?
Totally. They'd be like, oh, nice car. I'd be like, yeah, it's the only one I could really afford.
It was bizarre.
I mean, it was nice. It was convertible. It had big rims on it, which I really don't give a shit about.
Yeah.
Kind of fucked up the suspension, to be honest. But it didn't drive well. It got like
Mhm.
16 miles to the gallon. It's terrible, but it got
Uh-huh.
me from A to B. It was all right to have a convertible, and that was that.
Okay.
which I then traded in for the Mazda 6 that I drive
And now you have your first ever new
my
car.
first ever, and that I bought on my own.
It's awesome. My history is very small, much like yours in terms of cars, not girth. So my first car was a utility van from the city of Chicago, which I will share the great tale from that. That's my great story. And I saved money. I saved money for that in high school and bought it. My uncle got it like at an auction for me because I wanted like a empty van in the back to put, party ride.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So and I think I had maybe my third or fourth man experience in that car.
What was his name?
Yeah, Steve. So I also my next car was something happened to that car, and that's what I'll get to. Something really, really bad happened to that car.
Save a little time because there's a different story that's referenced here. So
okay.
Once you get through these runs, before we do the big story, we'll do the small one.
Okay, great. So and then my next car, my parents gave me for high school graduation, which was their minivan.
The Mini.
That's the car that I drove cross country, the Plymouth minivan. And that car, not only did I drive it cross country to bring it to Cali, it was the car that we had our first ever tour in. We drove. I got a hitch put on a Plymouth minivan, which is not recommended, and we got a U-Haul trailer
that you couldn't stand up in.
Yeah, and
it was small.
And most people do their first tours, which is great, which is kind of the Army of Freshmen story. We always thought bigger than we were, but instead of doing a tour of California, perhaps, or maybe even the West Coast, we decided to drive cross country and do an East Coast tour.
Of course we did.
It was crazy, just crazy. That's a great. So we should talk one time. We should do a podcast on the first ever tour.
Yeah.
So we had all this gear in the back of the U-Haul. So anyway, that was my first car. That car is stolen. Stolen.
Years later.
That's another story.
That is another story.
In the point of the car being stolen, my
response to the topic suggestion was like, we could do a whole series on that podcast. And now that I'm thinking about it, we really could.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So the next car I got was Aaron's Plymouth minivan. Aaron and I both had minivans at one time. Right. Aaron got a nice car from his grandfather. So basically he sold me his minivan. This minivan was so ugly, it's hard to kind of describe. It was like
really bad.
Yellow with brown paneling.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Fake wood paneling.
But it was just like hopping in from one minivan to another minivan. If
you took the station wagon that Aaron's parents had growing up and put it into minivan form, this is what this car was.
Yeah, unbelievable. So then I sold that because, ready for this? I recovered my stolen car.
Not the cops.
Yeah. Me.
Chris.
I recovered my stolen car.
That's a hell of a story.
That is. And then my next car was a hand-me-down. My parents gave me their Dodge Neon at the time because the van was falling apart at that point.
Drove that back from Philly.
And I drove the Neon forever down to the goddamn the final days of the Neon.
A year and a half ago.
Yeah, about a year and a half ago. Pure embarrassment. I mean, pure just and I'm not easily embarrassed, but there was a couple incidents where I'm talking doors falling off,
How many times did you get pulled over because of how that car looked and sounded?
Constantly. I mean, I got tons pulled over a lot. One time I got pulled over 3 times in 1 week, and I was literally doing nothing wrong. It was just I'd be out late and the car would sound horrible. And it was just terrible. And then I got another hand-me-down when a family member passed away, and I got their Camry, which I now have, which is actually starting to get a lot of miles on it and it's got some issues. It needs a timing belt bad, and my mechanic keeps telling me Chris, I keep telling you, I've been telling you for 2 years, you need a timing belt. He's like, when it goes, you're in real trouble. But I never have $500 spare dollars to spend on the timing belt. It's not something you can do on your own. I can't get a buddy that knows cars. So cars are a nightmare. I have spent so much money in my existence keeping the shitty cars that I just told you about afloat that I understand the policy of getting a new car and making payments on it because look at me. I spent thousands of dollars to keep all these crap cars I just told you about afloat, but it's so difficult for me to think of adding another bill to my life.
Totally.
But then when I have to go get a $500 timing belt and I realize I could probably be getting a shitty car and paying $120 a month of payment, that's 5 months of payments. So.
I will tell you that it sucks having a car payment. This is the first time I've ever had a car payment in my life.
I can't add bills. I need to get rid of them. It's tough times.
Not having to worry about a car like at all, because my car's still under warranty, about an extended warranty. I got 3 more years on it. I mean, I'm paying for it, but God, is it nice? Because I had so many problems with the Volkswagen, and then later the Ranger, because I worked in Hollywood and drove there every day, and it fucking killed my car. And then the Mustang, which had all kinds of problems of its own, was leaking. The radiator went out right when I was getting to sell it. I had to spend like $1,200 on it. Just thing after thing after thing. I totally understand what you're saying, and not having to deal with that is amazing, but it fucking hurts your wallet. I'm so anxious to be done and have my car paid off, because I'll have like $500 a month that I can just like, whoop.
Wow. How much are your payments, if you don't mind me getting personal?
Payments are $437. I pay extra on top of that.
God damn,
so
dude.
I can get it down.
That's a lot of fucking money.
It is.
That's a lot of money.
It is. Which I'm going
not to get too much into Dan's personal life, but clearly Dan has a fairly decent job, because
I do all right.
Because 5 years ago, that was not an option for Dan to add $500 to his monthly stipend.
Actually, $500 5 years ago was when it became okay for me to have that stipend.
Is that when you got the job?
Yeah,
you've been doing that for 5 years?
I'm in my 6th now.
Wow.
Started in 2010. So,
man, God, again, back to our original conversation. Time, as I can't get my head around time. I feel like there was a speed warp.
Fucked up.
Past couple years was like a speed warp. Like I was here, and then all of a sudden everything went crazy. So honestly, I don't give a fuck about cars, but in American culture, cars are big. They're up there with sports, man. If you took away sports and you took away cars, this country would literally collapse, or at the very least, a lot of people would have no passion whatsoever. Like life would become non-existent. Could you imagine? That's kind of an interesting concept to like, sports are gone and cars are gone. There are people that be like, I have nothing to live for anymore.
Exactly. And while I don't care for those things myself, I'm certainly glad that those things exist for the people that do.
Yeah.
I would never want to take those things away.
You're talking about mass suicides. There's guys that want to fucking watch the game on Sunday and work on their car on Saturday, and that's what propels them, you know? Crazy. But adventures happen in cars, undoubtedly. And there is a deep love for your first ride or your second ride. So Jeff, who we talked about earlier, a friend of mine growing up, he suggested this topic. Does he have a lead on the story here?
He does.
Because I have the ultimate story of my first car.
You do.
But I'm wondering, it's maybe not what he's referencing.
This one isn't about your car per se. He says, make sure Chris mentions the time we were in an Ian's VW bus and got pulled over on the Parkway for jumping out of tolls and stealing change off the ground, which was apparently your idea.
Oh, yeah, you blame for that. Wow, I have to. It's hard to remember all the details are murky at best. But our buddy Ian. And here's the thing about Ian. Ian was, and I still keep in touch with Ian, good dude. But here's the thing with Ian. Ian was a very quiet kind of guy, right? And dare I say, at the time, a little spastic, right? And we started hanging out with Ian a little bit, and Ian had a VW bus. He had a VW bus, and he, was kind of like a hippie guy, and he had this cool little bus, and we were about 45 minutes away from a mall called the Hamilton Mall. So basically, a lot of our early car rides or transportation went in your ride. The far ride was like going to the mall. Everybody wanted to go to the mall. This is back in the days when malls had arcades and bookstores and CD stores, and there was reasons to go to the mall. Now the mall's like closed, So we got into the habit, I believe, of there are a lot of rumors if you put a cup in the old school change things. There's a different era of like there's tolls in Jersey. So every couple miles you got to stop and throw a quarter in there. Dudes were putting cups in there.
I know what you're
okay, right? So the money would fall in the cup.
Throw the change in the cup instead of in the change
and then you'd go back 2-3 hours later and grab the cup, and you'd have 20, 30, 40 bucks in that cup, So this was a big thing. And before technology is a little different now. There's a lot of fast pass and all that. But in the old days, it was you go through a toll.
That first tour that we went on, when we went through it, I was like, what the fuck
Did that blow your mind? Yeah.
And you just like throw the money in.
And Jersey's famous for it. They're every 5 feet. It's ridiculous. It actually costs money to take long trips in New Jersey. It's bizarre. So we were, I don't know if we've been doing the cup trick or we were putting our hands in or exactly what the deal was, but we were stealing change, right? And as we were coming back through the thing, we're stealing change. And again, Jeff probably has a better detail on this. I don't remember this completely, but boom, siren hits and cops come.
Hear that? It's the sound of 1999.
Yeah, exactly. And it's terror. I mean, when you're a kid, when you're 16 years old, terrifying. And it is still terrifying. You get pulled over by the cops, you are terrified on top of it, we were engaged in criminal practices, stealing money from the state, So we're just fucking freaked out, man.
In Jersey, what else?
Poor Ian kind of just started hanging out with him. You know what I mean?
No.
So he kind of like, I don't want to say Ian was trying to be cool because that's a terrible thing to say, but there was probably a little element of Ian getting to hang out with a new group of dudes, and you'd probably want to impress. And honestly, a guy like me and Jeff probably forced him into this change stealing thing. Like in all great heist movies, the driver is always the one that gets pulled in at the last minute, like Heat, and the cop came, and I don't recall everything, but it was fearsome. I mean, I don't know if he knew that we were stealing or he was accusing us of being stealing change, but he was, it was mustached freaking cop gonna scare the shit out of these kids. We're in a VW bus, so I remember him insisting that there was drugs in there. They those small town cops where we came from, they put a lot of pressure on teenagers. That was almost like their fun thing to do. Plus, it was the 90s where anti-authority, anarchy, Kurt Cobain, fuck the law, long-haired hippies running around smoking weed, and plus, Chiba, weed, whatever you want to call it. Back in 1997 or 96 in New Jersey, it was some pretty fucking illegal shit. It was not California in 2015 where literally it's basically legal.
That's true.
It was a very different thing. Like, you get caught with a little weed back then, you're going to go to jail, not serve time, but they're at least going to bring you in, maybe even serve time. And here now you get caught with weed. So it was just a fiasco. I don't remember. I think we tried to escape by going to, trying to go another exit, and hide from him, and then he pulled off. I don't remember the exact details, but I apologize for that, Ian McGowan. And what a great name, Ian McGowan. That's a movie name,
Totally.
So that's my story for that. And I have an epic story about my first ride ever. If you're ready for that, Dan, I don't know if you want to contribute, because what's tough about this now is now we're talking about great stories that occurred in cars.
And that's what he wanted in this topic. So I don't have anything,
because there's tons of great stories that occur in cars.
Epic. The one, I'll try and keep it short. The one that really stands out in my mind, at least as it involves the V-Dub, is that when we went up to play in Davis for the freshman orientation, I don't remember what they called it now.
Davis is a college in California,
UC
but it's
Davis.
Very far up north.
It's north of Sacramento, so it's normal traffic 7 or 8 hours. In my Volkswagen, 10 or 11. Because it can only go so fast. And we, my brother and a bunch of my friends were going to UC Santa Cruz at the time, which was on the way. So we stopped, stayed a night there. Some of them continued with us on to UC Davis. And this is a long drive for my Volkswagen, which was, made 2 years before
This is a legit road trip.
It's a legit road trip.
You and I were going to the gig before everybody else. We were going to meet some of the other guys, had to come a day later or something.
Yeah, we were bringing some of the gear up and stuff. And
very early in our career too. We were kids.
19 maybe.
Yeah, we were kids. We were kind of like going to hang out at a college, but we were college age. Right. We weren't like 30-year-olds
where we'd get arrested.
Yeah, exactly.
There were a couple of hills that on that trip that I wasn't sure the bus was going to make it. And I remember we listened to Frank Black so much on that drive, and just felt like that record got us through.
I remember
Teenager of the Year, man.
Frank Black, Teenager of the Year, we listened to on that. Johnny Polanski, Hello, My Name is Johnny. Refreshments, Big Fizzy Buzzy.
Big Buzzy Fizzy Fuzzy. One of them.
Modest Mouse, Long Drive for Something with No One to Think About. I remember the music that we listened. Some road trips really just stick with you. It was a great trip.
And throughout this trip, you could hear that there was a little bit of an exhaust leak, and then at some point when we were driving back after the trip was done, I remember going over a bridge and there was a bump and the noise stopped. Because every so often you hear the muffler scrape and then it just stopped. And I was like, shit, I think we lost the muffler. Muffler was gone. I had to go have a new one put on after that trip was over. It was kind of funny, but
man.
Yeah. Not a bad story, just a fun
great trip. Just a lot of road trips in cars you really remember when you're young. So I'm gonna close it out with the story of my first car. I had mentioned earlier I got a van. It was a utility van for the city of Chicago. It was on an auction somewhere. My uncle got it really cheap. I think I got it for $1,500. I saved up for it. I had a van. It was gutted, completely empty, the sliding doors, total child molester van, gray, all sorts of fucking issues, breaking down every 2 seconds. But it was my first ride and I loved it dearly. And I put plywood on the floor in the back of the van and carpet over the plywood. And I put beanbag chairs in there. right? So it was like a hang. Like you could get 5-6 guys in my van and just sit back on beanbags and kick it, blah, blah, blah. Now, putting plywood floors in a metal van.
I'm assuming they were not fastened. They were just there.
It was crazy. I mean, it was like, I was constructing stuff. And as you well know, that's not my forte.
Mechanical autos.
Yeah, exactly. So this is my first rod. I loved it dearly. And I had made plans to, ready for this? Get it painted the color of the A-Team van.
So badass.
I had made plans. I had scheduled an actual appointment, saved a little bit of money. I felt like this is really terrible, but like, now in my 30s, I think I had more free money in high school than I did now.
Of course you
because
did.
Like, I had the job and I didn't have to fucking pay anything, So I was going to get the car painted the color of the A-Team. It was a beat up van, but it was just going to be badass. And I just wanted to drive into school that next Monday morning in the A-Team van, So it is a Friday afternoon and it is New Jersey. It's probably this time of year. I think it's like in the fall, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
It's gray skies, all that kind of stuff. And I decided to skip school. And I'm going to go to the mall that I told you about. That's about 45 minutes north because that's where you went when you skipped school. Same mall that Jeff Small and I and Ian McGowan stole change on the way back. My friend Vinny Campanella,
of course,
who is a key figure in several great, many stories. Very close friend when I was young, growing up, and still a buddy. He decides to come with me. Vinny and I are gonna skip school, and we're gonna go to the mall. It's just me and him. It wasn't like a big group of people. So we get in my van, my shitty van. I'm probably not the best driver in the world. I've only been driving for like 2 months or something like that. I got my license in Jersey. You can't get your license till you're 17.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So, and I got it like late in the game. Barely got it, I may add. I actually crashed Alex Coulter's car into a pole when he was teaching me how to drive.
No wonder he still hates you.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually talked to Alex today. He does not hate me. So here's the deal. We're going up to the mall. And we're driving on the expressway. We're on there's parkways, expressways, freeways in Jersey. It's very complicated.
Turnpike.
Turnpikes. Yeah. I accidentally take the exit to Atlantic City, not the exit to go to the mall. And now we're on the Atlantic City Expressway heading to Atlantic City. Well, we're not trying to go to Atlantic City.
Right.
We're getting ready to come up on the Atlantic City toll, like where you pay your $2 to go into Atlantic City. It was all true. I am like, me and Vince are like, oh shit, whatever. We wanted to save the $2. So I decided to, on the spot, on the fucking expressway, make a U-turn in front of the toll.
Jesus.
Because I don't know. I mean, I thought I clearly I looked. I didn't see anybody. Maybe there was like no traffic because I was on the furthest one to the left, meaning that if I make the U-turn, like I'm in the one that's leaving town, Well, I make the turn and an explosion. I mean, it felt like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
We got hit by a car. Hit by a taxi dead on side of the van. So I was sideways and the taxi moving, I may add, goes slamming into the side of
broadside of the passenger side of your van.
The driver's side. Broadside of the driver's side. So I'm making like a left.
Oh, so he was coming up behind you.
Yeah, he was in the lane.
He wasn't in oncoming traffic.
Yeah, exactly. He was not in oncoming traffic.
Okay, I see.
Boom. We're hit. The van, I mean, this skids. And I'm sitting there like, oh fuck. I mean, it's my first car accident, really, you know what I mean? And you're a kid, all this stuff's going through your mind. You just got your first car, you wrecked it, your parents are gonna fucking kill you. You're skipping school. That's the biggest one.
You get in a car wreck.
Yeah, so and you get in a car wreck. Okay, you ready? So I look over to the passenger seat and there's no Vinny. There's no one in the seat.
Shit.
And I look back. I turn and look back to the back of the van. And so help me God, this is true. What I saw was what I interpreted to be brains falling, scaling, dropping down the wall of the van, the inside wall of the back of the van. And so all I could think of is I just killed Vinny, and I am staring at his brains that are splattered on the van. That's a heavy, heavy, heavy thing, even to think for a split second.
Yeah, especially after this
I
crazy
am
wreck.
in shock. I mean, shock, legit shock. And I hear, "Oh, fuck. Jesus Christ. Fuck." And I see Vinny's body in the back of the van. And it dawns on me, wait a minute. Keep in mind, this is all in a split second. If your brains are splattered all across the van, you're probably not saying, "Oh, fuck, Jesus Christ, oh, fuck." So I look at Vinny, and he kind of pops up, and he doesn't have a head wound. And I'm like,
good.
What the fuck? And I realized that upon impact, the bean bags that I had told you about earlier exploded, and a bunch of sodas in the back exploded. Sodas hit the wall.
Jesus.
Bean bags hit the wall, thus giving you the look of white brains sliding down the side of the wall. Vinny is not dead. He is definitely in shock and sore. I fall out. Turns out we're hit by a taxi. Fucking nightmare. There are people injured in the taxi. The fucking ambulance has to come and hurt people. I didn't know what was going on. The cops come. There is a hole. It looks like a missile. It looks like a fucking missile went through the side of the goddamn van. It's a cheap, old, beat-up van. I mean, it's just... The plywood that I told you about is in a V. It just cracked in a V. So Vinny's resting in a V of plywood, covered in soda and fucking guts. And so we get out. We have to. I mean, long story short, it was hell. And we had to hop in a fucking what do you call it? A tow truck that had to tow the van to my house. And oh man, I will never forget. My dad's a sweetheart now. He's a sweet, sweet, kind dude. But he was,
I can vouch.
He was a bit of a, he was a dad, you know what I mean? Like, he could have been a real dick back in the day. And he was just standing outside of the store where we lived at the music store, just waiting for that ride to show up. Like, just that disgust. He wanted to take a picture of it. Just like,
did the cops call your parents?
Yeah, I had to call them and say I was in a car accident. I'm at a tow truck, all that kind of stuff. So ultimately, the happy ending is, as far as I know, no one in the taxi cab died, despite injuries. There was definitely, I don't think there was a lawsuit, but insurance handled it, and I had insurance, and I think it was pretty hefty. I probably fucked my parents' insurance up, because that's what you do when you have a car. You get in an accident, you fuck their insurance up. And the van was gone forever. You know, it had to be sold, not sold, but getting away for scrap metal. The frame was destroyed. And maybe that was the end. To sum it up, maybe that was the end of my love for cars, because something that I was so proud of and took such good care of and was really close to me just fucking died in front of me. And I just think maybe I never ever really recovered from that. Maybe from that day on, I just look at cars as, you know, a vehicle. I can't fall in love. I guess it would be like your first love dies and you're like, I could never love again.
I will never love again. Wesley.
Yeah, exactly. You know, farm boy, farm van. So there's my story of my first car, and how I thought I killed my friend Vinny.
I mean, I'm glad that everybody was in the long run okay, but that's a way better story than my first car, which we just sold to somebody.
It definitely ended in tragedy. There's no doubt about it. I miss that car. But the saddest part of all, not the injured people, not the pain and suffering Vinny had, not the fear that I had that I almost killed Vinny. It's that I had to cancel the appointment for the 18 paint job.
Got to have the 18 van.
I never got to have the 18 van. So I tell you this, I make this statement right here. I ever make real fucking money one day, I'm getting a van and I'm getting it painted the color of the 18 van. I don't give a shit if I'm a 50-year-old lunatic driving around Ventura in an 18 van. I mean, I'm going to have it.
You did that. It didn't end so well. So maybe just keep that in mind.
Good call. Good call. Good call. So anyway, there's my story. And just right now popped up on my Yahoo in front of me. Thousands apply to adopt world's saddest dog. Photos of Lana went viral after she was returned to a shelter.
What's horrible?
Her story may have a happy ending, showing improvement. That breaks my fucking heart.
It was the
man.
saddest picture I think I've ever seen.
I'm looking at the picture
of
right
a
now.
dog.
1 year. Why did somebody put this dog in a foster home, a Labrador puppy?
They couldn't. The family couldn't keep it or something, so they had to take it back to the shelter. I didn't read the story because I couldn't bear to fucking read it. The picture was so sad.
I've become such a violent fucking dog lover.
You've
man.
really done a full 180
Full
on
circle.
pets.
We should talk about pets sometimes because
yeah.
I get choked up looking at this picture of this poor little dog here, man. I am just an absolute 100% dog lover. I was so late to that party. You were always a heavy duty dog
Grew
guy,
up with dogs.
You know, dogs are awesome.
They're the best.
They should live forever. I have no idea why they have to pass on.
It's terrible. Life is hard, Jay, man. 18 vans don't get made. Dogs pass on.
Yeah, what a sad day. I told you I was having a bummer day, and I felt good coming here doing this, and now we're ending on such a sad note. Fucking Vinny's dead. Well, he's not dead, but he was dead in my story. My car is gone. Now I don't love cars because I had therapy tonight. I realized why I have no love for cars.
Yeah.
Because I lost my first car.
All right. Take that, Mark Maron.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is you have a Camry that works. You have
temporarily.
You have
the fucking goddamn timing belt's going to go on me, and then I have nothing.
It'll be like on Santa Monica Boulevard all over again. You have 2 awesome dogs.
Yeah,
that are kick-ass.
I do have a delicious Moscow Mule. For whatever it's worth, this one's getting better. Usually when you have a mixed drink, by the time you get to the end, it's kind of bad. Dude, these Dan Clark Moscow Mules, they get better as they go.
They are delicious. That's why I can't stop drinking them. They're delicious.
That's why I'm a fucking full-fledged alcoholic.
That's why my liver has to be replaced.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for listening. We say it every week. You're probably sick of hearing it. If you get this far in the podcast, you probably stop the podcast.
A medal.
You probably stop the podcast because you know what we're going to do. We're going to plug it. Yep. We don't do a lot of effort on plugging it online. We're bad with the socials. We got to talk about how we're still trying to figure out the whole guest thing to get people to call in and all that kind of stuff.
Still haven't figured that out yet.
Some things you have to look forward to, though. The big kind of Thanksgiving holiday, bring Kai and John back podcast.
That's coming.
The new system that we will soon have, we'll be able to take calls and talk to people.
That's hopefully coming.
Guest interviews. So we're trying here. We're trying to slowly move it along, but we thank you for sticking with us. We really do.
Yeah, it's from the bottom of our hearts. This is amazing. I mean, it doesn't cost us anything to do this, and it probably costs you a lot of time and patience listening to us blab every week.
Cost me about $20 in gas to get out to fucking Dan's parents' garage because he lives in motherfucking,
It is way out in the middle of nowhere.
Really fucked up. I know this is a long podcast. We're all over the place. Dude, do you see? We talked extensively about that missing jet, the Malaysian one.
Oh, yeah.
In the early days of Fresh Talk, that was one of our hot topics. Did you see this Russian jet?
No.
Oh, come on. You haven't watched the news at all in a couple days?
Is this recent?
Russian plane, domestic plane, airline.
This
fucking exploded in midair. They don't know what the fuck happened. And they're putting
reports
out.
Scotland.
No. It was over an ISIS-controlled area in like Egypt, flying back to Russia from a resort. Everybody dead. Whole plane, whole 9 yards, only in the air for 20 minutes. And, aviation experts are saying, like, this is just not right. It's not right. Like, this doesn't.
Something's up.
It would have to be such a serious malfunction that there would have to be some sign of that before the plane took off.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, planes have accidents when they get off the ground. Planes have accidents when they hit the ground. But if you're cruising at altitude in this day and age, for the most part, bearing the most severe weather out of the blue and clear, perfect skies. So some ISIS guy said, yeah, we shot it down with a missile. And they're like, you're fucking full of shit. It's way too high. There's no missile that would hit that from a surface to air. But just now, literally in the past couple hours, CNN is reporting that early reports are, if you want to check CNN real quick, Dan, is that they think it may be terrorist attack. Ready for this? Bomb that was placed. What do you got?
That's the exact same. What's from CNN? It's the same headline. So go ahead.
Bomb.
Yeah,
somebody
hit a bomb.
Hit a bomb on a plane, whether it was a worker or whether it was the luggage thing. And now it's not 100%. I think that's what they're leaning towards. But think about that, Dan. That means that somebody checked the bag on a plane. Okay, ready for this? And didn't get on the plane. And usually they pull the bag. I'm almost positive that if you check a bag and you don't walk onto the plane, they actually pull the bag off the flight.
Yeah, I'm sure they absolutely do.
Yeah, because
it
makes sense
in the States. I don't know what Russia does.
So one, yeah, you're right. This is a completely different policy over there. But what if somebody was so fucking crazy that they, instead of hijacking the plane 9/11 style, they put that bomb on and stepped on that plane and knew that they were going to blow up. And they sat there and fucking listened to the airline announcements and kept cool and just waited to explode. That's a crazy thought.
That's fucked up.
If that's what happened. Yeah, if that's what happened.
Really early to make those kind of speculations. But if they do pull those bags off, then that could have happened.
Yeah. Or did somebody somehow
shuffle it on there?
You know, a worker, an employee, a maintenance guy. I mean, who knows? But just fucking crazy. So a bunch of countries are saying, yo, we're not flying over this region until we know what the fuck's up. It's like, obviously it's a huge international news story. Maybe we'll know more next week, but I'm a little tense about flying in general, as you know. I'm better with it. Turbulence kind of freaks me out. I'm a little better with it, a lot better with it than I was when I had serious panic attacks almost. Right. But I just don't want to die on a plane, dude. I mean, like, I hope, knock on wood, I'm not cursing my fucking self right now, but I would not want to blow up in the middle of the sky. I mean, that just sounds like a terrorist attack. Why do they fuck with planes, man? Because they can get a lot of people, right?
Exactly. Because
people are stuck.
People are stuck. It's captive audience is the wrong term, but they're stuck, and it's relatively easy to blow up a plane. You know, precautions make it harder,
but there's so much fuel on it. You have an igniter.
Fuel. It's a pressurized fucking cigar in the sky. Like, so many things can already go wrong.
Pressurized cigar in the sky.
You know, you suck a bird down one of them engines, you could have to fucking land.
They're fucking playing in birds.
Yeah, I mean, they're fragile as it is, and it's super safe. I mean, it's way safer than driving. But you know, things happen. Fucking bombs get on there.
Yeah, weird. One to keep our eye on. Again, that's not 100% they think what happened, but they said the last report I saw is they are leaning towards that.
And weirdly enough, this has nothing to do with what I'm about to say, but you bringing this up made me think of a rave of the week, but I'm going to save it for next week.
Okay.
I have a pick of the week for next week. It has nothing to do with the Russian plane.
I wonder what segue would bring us to that point. You know, if Tech Talk next week is about how to bring down a plane, we're going to get investigated.
No, it's not,
and we'll get a lot of hits. Talk about, we think our viewership's doing better than we thought. Like, hey, man, have you heard that podcast where the guy told you how to bring down a plane via fucking Twitter?
I'm already in jail. Like, as soon as this ends.
You're so that guy, dude. You're so that guy that would accidentally stumble into something that's like, I think I fucked up.
Well, there was a guy that, never mind. We'll save that for next week, too.
Oh, man. Cool. Well, folks, thanks for listening. Dan, where can they find us?
You can find everything we do at freshtalkpodcast.com. We're at Fresh Talk Podcast on Facebook. We're at Fresh Talk Pod on the Twitter. We're at Fresh Talk Podcast on the Google Plus. And if by chance you're one of the 8 people still on Google Plus and you follow us, you can contribute to this podcast live, not just watching.
Did Google Plus
stream.
Not work?
It really didn't, and it's a damn shame because I think it's a way better platform than Facebook.
You were a big fan of Google
I still use it. I still love it, but nobody else does, and that's okay. You know?
What they needed to do was create Google Plus, and you can only Google sexual related things.
I think that's an internal project. They don't really let that out to the public.
Don't you think that'll work though? Google Plus.
Not really in line with their business strategy, but maybe they could change.
God, I'm still looking at this sad dog. Fuck, I gotta get this off my screen.
You gotta change that. Yeah. I am at SpooningDX pretty much everywhere.
I'm on Twitter at Army of Freshmen. If you have topic ideas, tonight's topic, cars, automobiles.
A listener suggestion.
A listener suggested topic. Please send them in. Let us know. We will cover them. We will talk about what you need. We'll continue to work on this thing so we can get live callers. Yes. That's the ultimate. If we could get some people to call in, that'd be great. Talk some shit with some people. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I'm into that.
Yeah, but spread the word when you see the Twitter post, when it's up, when it's happening. And of course, you can watch live.
You can.
If you're lucky enough, you can actually watch us right now. Turn and say
hello to all 3 people watching. We love you.
My thumb is weird.
I mean, not just your thumb. Dude.
What's your thumb look like? Does yours go? You got a little bit.
Yours like way double jointed though.
Double jointed, you think?
A little bit. Like this is like the Facebook like symbol. Why are you slow jerking?
Because there's a 3D effect right now. Those 3 people are stoked. I'm gonna bust on you.
Oh, great.
There it is.
Oh, that's so compelling. Thank
you. Dan, you want to take us out?
Yeah. Hey, cue the bossa nova.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was good.
How long was
that? Best guess is an hour and 10, hour and 10, an hour and 15. I didn't see exactly when we started. Because he goes crazy. Put him on the leash really calms him down.
Yeah. It's so weird how every dog's temperament is different. What works for them, what helps them.
I mean, you've been over here. Put it on the crate, and he fucking goes
crazy in his crate because he can hear us. And then I was like, well, let me leave him inside.
Yeah, he's cool.
He's roaming
Like he
all
doesn't want to
around.
raise with us. If
I had him on the leash last week under the chair. He was knocking shit over, and then I just put him on the leash by his bed. He's like, all right, I'll lay in bed. Weird. Yeah. Hi. 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 Oh, thank you for being good. Thank you for being good.